Hello, Flosstube Nation. This is Cindy's Adventures in Stitching, and it's episode 7. And this video is about cross stitch, sewing, a little bit of wool applique, might be a little bit of English paper piecing, and could be a little bit of punch needle. We have a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to get right into it. Starting with old business. Normally, or last time that we had an episode, we thought we were going to have a guest stitcher. As it turned out, she is on vacation this week, and prior to that, we were on vacation. We went back to Michigan in order to ski. They didn't have much snow. We drove up on Sunday, no snow. It got up upper 30s on Monday, still no snow. Tuesday, still no snow. Wednesday, still no snow. But Wednesday night, we did get a beautiful, beautiful snow in the night. And I don't care if I live to be 120. If there's a prospect of snow or the promise of snow, I'm going to get up in the middle of the night and check to see how much there is or whether or not it has stopped snowing. And that's exactly what Sam and I both did on Wednesday night. And when we woke up Thursday morning, there was a beautiful winter wonderland looking out our window. We stayed on the Fusible River, which is near Grayling, east of Grayling, south of Mackinac Bridge, and it was absolutely beautiful. We cross-country skied at a place called Forbush, and they groomed the trails, and it was gorgeous. We had a wonderful day of skiing. It did do a wintry mix on us as we were skiing throughout the day. And so by the time we were done, we were kind of covered in ice pellets, kind of a sheet of ice on our hats and on our coats, but we had a great time. So Thursday, that was Thursday. So Thursday night, it snowed some more. And we were supposed to leave on Friday, but it was so beautiful out that we called the gal who does our house sitting and asked if she could stay another night. She said that she could. So we downhill skied on Friday at Caberfay. And then Friday night, we got more snow. We woke up Saturday morning. It was gorgeous. And we decided we can't leave this. We got to stay another day. So Sam called her and she said, well, yeah, I can stay tonight, but I have to go to work on Monday. Are you coming back Sunday? And he said, yes, we'll be back on Sunday. So we had another day of cross-country skiing on Saturday and had a wonderful time. Now, we had to occupy ourselves on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So those 3 days, we went antiquing. I went to a couple quilt stores. And depending on how long today's video lasts, I'll show you what my haul was. I found some great bargains, some great sewing accessories, I guess you'd call it. Found some vintage embroidery hoops, found some beautiful scissors, all kinds of really neat stuff. So if we have time, we'll go over that at the end of the video. But right now, I want to talk to you about what I realized or discovered when we were on our trip. I was waiting for Sam. I was in the car and it was daylight, pretty good light. And I thought, man, if I had a project that I could work on in the car, I could make better use of my time. I had my phone, of course, and that kept me occupied, but I really could have been stitching, and that's what I wished I was doing. So I decided I needed to keep a travel project bag in my car to use for times like this, for times like that. So then I realized, well, if I'm going to have a travel project bag, I need to have a matching needle book because I need to have a couple extra spare needles. Heaven forbid I drop a needle in the car and can't find it back, or I need some place to keep my scissors because I'm a little bit nervous about keeping scissors in a project bag. I don't want it to accidentally poke my fabric. So that's when I decided if I'm going to make a project bag and I'm going to make a needle book, they need to match. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a project bag and we're going to make a matching needle book. I have a couple of examples here. This is my needle book. It has a little pocket to keep scissors in. Got a place for my needle. If you have spare thread, you can keep that in here. It will adhere to it. This is made out of wool. and then a pocket on the other side. And then this is my project bag. I made this one first and I quilted it, and I love the looks of a quilted project bag. Now here's the thing. This doesn't necessarily have to be a project bag. It can also be like a makeup bag. The first one I made for a friend who doesn't stitch, and she uses it when she travels. It's a great makeup bag, and you can make it any size that you want to make it, and it is so beginner friendly. I can't stress enough how beginner friendly it is. Then here's another example that I made. Now I did not sew these on, but I mean, you could embellish it with just about anything that you wanted to. It's got some accent fabric, and if you'll notice, instead of a regular zipper, it has a lace zipper, which is so much easier to put on a project bag. And I'll show you this one does too. They're fully lined, as you can see, and they have no exposed seams. This is a French seam. Super easy to do. I think if you're a beginner sewer and you want to make a bag, this is the one that you need to make, because the zipper is so much easier than putting on a regular zipper. You put it on the front and on the top of the fabric. And then the French seams, if you've never done a French seam before, they're super easy to do. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to go over to where I have a place to iron and cut, and I'll show you how easy this project bag is to make. Okay, this fabric is Teresa Kogut's Stitchy Bird design fabric, and this is going to be my outer piece, my outer fabric piece, and this is going to be my lining piece. And I have used, I think it's Mary Ellen's Best Press, to just starch it just a little bit. So I'm going to lay my lining fabric over to the side, and also wanted to let you know, you can make this any size that you want to make it. I have 16-inch lace zippers that I bought off of Amazon. I got a group of them, and here they are, just assorted colors. You can also buy a longer size, and honestly I wish I would have gotten a longer size, but these are all 16 inches, and you get two or three colors, I'm sorry, 2 or 3 of the same of each color that you get. And these also come in 19-inch off of Amazon, and if you go on the Missouri Star Quilt Company website, ooh, that made it brighter. They have 24-inch, and I think it might be 6 of them for about $17, and they're good colors. The ones that you get off of Missouri Star, there's like black, a light gray, a dark gray, a white, a navy, and a turquoise. So those are all good colors too. And once I've used up some of these, I definitely know that I will get longer sizes, because the whole key to this project bag is that your zipper is longer than the width of your fabric. So I cut this 14 inches wide because my zippers are 16 inches. I'm pretty sure they're 16 inches. So like I said, I bought the other project bags are also made out of Teresa Kogut's Stitchy Bird. Such a cute, cute, cute fabric, especially for project bags, because it has all kinds of cross-stitching sayings. So I'm going to set aside my lining just for a minute. Now, for the bag that I quilted, I used batting. I sprayed it with like a tacky and adhered the batting to the wrong side of the fabric, and then I quilted that fabric. I'm not going to quilt this one. Instead, I'm going to use a featherweight fusible fleece. Now, I cut my featherweight, or I'm sorry, the fusible fleece just a little bit smaller than I cut the outer fabric and the lining fabric. And the lining fabric and the outer fabric are both cut to the same size. Again, I cut it 14 inches wide and 26 inches long. I'm not sure if I said it 26 inches or not, but, and I chose that because it would be a good size for most of your patterns will fit inside that size of a project bag. Now when you look at your fleece or your stabilizer interfacing, it has a bumpy side and it has a smooth side. You're going to iron the bumpy side of this Fusible to the wrong side or the non-pretty side of your fabric, outer fabric, not lining. Well, I guess you could do lining, but I'm going to do it to my outer. So I'm going to make it just a little bit inside of my fabric. And you'll see when we get ready to do those French seams, you'll understand why I'm doing it this way. It helps to prevent less bulk. And I think that looks like that's pretty even. I've got my portable iron and I've got it on steam. Let's hope it works. I might just give it a little squirt. And this should stick to my fabric. Now, this wool mat that I have is wonderful. I usually keep it by my sewing machine so that I don't have to get up a lot in order to iron something. It gets pretty hot. I will say it doesn't get as hot as my vintage iron does, and I'll show you what happened with that in just a minute. So that's adhered. We're going to move this just a little bit, get the wrinkles out. I kind of try and start in the middle and work my way to the outside. That will eliminate any wrinkles. And again, I tell you, if you're just a little bit intimidated by making a project bag, this is a great one to start with. I first saw this several years ago. The gal's name is Nicole Reed. She's from Australia. And the name of her YouTube channel is Devana Lee Designs. I always say that wrong. Devana, I think it's Devana Lee Designs. And she showed it. It was the first time I mean, French seams to me sounds like, ooh, super fancy. And a lace zipper, that sounds super fancy. But it's not. It's so much easier. So much easier. Oh, that got a little bit wet. Oh goodness, I think my iron is leaking. Uh-oh. Yep, definitely leaking. Something I forgot to mention before we got started was my cameraman, who's my husband, Sam, is mic'd up, so he can now talk and you can hear what he has to say, which may or may not be a good idea. I'm not sure. We'll see. Jury's still out on that.
Your sister still won't be able to hear me.
I know, that's because you mumble. Anyway, I have my Fusible Featherweight interfacing adhered to the wrong side of my outer piece of fabric. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to sew the right sides of my lining and my outer piece together. And we're only going to sew at the ends, the most narrow part, so the 14-inch piece right here. We're going to sew both ends together. And I really think when you guys see this made, you're going to be like, holy smokes, that's so easy. So just to reiterate, the Fusible that I'm using is a Pellon product, and I just got it at Joann's, and it says Fusible Featherweight. You could use something heavier if you wanted to. I'm just trying to reduce the bulk because when you do those French seams, it can get pretty bulky. So we're going to go back over to the sewing machine, and I'll tell you a little bit about my sewing machine when we get there. And we're going to sew.
Because it's such a long trip to the sewing machine.
I know, it's not. And you know, that's another thing I want to say too. I mean, this is a small space, and it's a little bit cramped because we're filming in here. But if it were just me, it's tons of room. to sew. And that's a whole idea why Sam gave me the Featherweight sewing machine, is so that we could take it camping with us. And let's say he goes fishing during the day, then I can sew. I can do my piecing for a quilt. I can stitch in here. I mean, it's a great, great space. So let's go over here and I'll show you what I mean.
Oh, look, you're already there.
That didn't take long at all, did it?
I got to open the roof vent before I die. It's kind of hot up here at the ceiling.
Well, if you weren't so tall, it wouldn't be hot. I didn't think it was hot at all. I was fine. You know, that light above the stove puts out a lot of heat. I guess it's a gas light, so is it like a furnace or something? I don't know.
It's an LP light.
Okay. So again, to go over what I've already said, just to make sure that we're clear, this is 14 inches wide and my zipper, I believe, is 16. Now, that doesn't mean the zipper part is 16. That means that the lace part is 16. So I have my outer fabric, which is the blue. I have my interfacing fused to it. And I have my lining. And we are going to sew the lining to the outer fabric, pretty sides together. And my Featherweight, just a little background on that, Sam gave this to me for Christmas 2 years ago, I think. We had gone to a vintage camper rally in Columbus, Indiana, which is close to where we live. And there was a woman who had a Featherweight sitting on her table, kind of like this is, and she was selling a few things as well. And I said, oh, what a great idea, because this Featherweight is so portable and lightweight. It's great to take places. And so I had said, oh, I see you have a Featherweight, and we talked a little bit about it. And then, of course, Sam, being the great husband that he is, he did some research on his own, and he found one in Indianapolis that was a one family owner. The woman that he bought it from, her mother had used it. She hadn't used it much, but she had had it serviced at Select Sewing, which is a sewing machine shop in Indianapolis, and it's great. That's where I bought all my sewing machines from. Not like I have a ton, but two. And they do a great job. Their service department I would put up against any sewing store across the nation. They're wonderful. And then this black table is a Sew Steady table, and I got it. I just ordered it from Missouri Star after Sam gave me the Featherweight. I knew I needed a surface, and so I ordered that from Missouri Star, and it fits perfectly. This is a 221 model, and was it made in 1948? Is that what she said? Okay.
I didn't actually see it at the camper rally where we were at.
Oh, you didn't? You didn't notice it?
I didn't know what it was. I thought it was something new. So
it was definitely not new.
yeah, so I started researching Featherweights, and they were talking about all these old machines. And come to find out, they're all antiques.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I named her Fancy, the Featherweight, and she's anything but fancy. She just does a straight stitch. You can do a reverse stitch and a straight stitch. And there are attachments that you can get for them, but honestly, I don't need any attachments. You can get a zipper foot and you can get a ruffler. But if I mean, to put in these lace zippers, you don't even need a zipper foot. That's what's so fantastic.
We got a pretty handy attachment here. I'm helping pull the fabric on the side.
That's great, honey. Will you go with me all the time?
I'm kind of busy.
I got to tell you about my little clippers too. When I was in college, I worked at a factory called, at that time it was called Costco, and they made juvenile furniture, playpens, high chairs, things like that. And I worked in the sewing department, and I sewed the mesh to the nylon of a playpen. And I'm kind of aging myself because I don't even think they make playpens anymore. I've never, I mean...
We call them kitty corrals today.
Okay, well, anyway, so I got this. Now, it's super great, it's real, but it's heavy as all get out. But it works great in here. Okay, so I've sewn one end, and I'm going to sew the other end. And we may speed this up because they're probably not going to want to see me sewing. You know, it's weird, but I kind of like the sound of her sewing. She just hums right along. And to think that she was born made in 1948 is amazing. Now, there is one thing that I did not realize until I got her, and I was just kind of researching what to do. She has to be oiled every 8 hours, and you're really supposed to oil the bobbin case every time that you use it. But I'm sewing so little with these project bags that I didn't oil it. Now I did oil it the time before when I made those, because I made those in here too. But that's something that I know Lori Holt, if you watch any of her quilting videos, she sews with a featherweight, and she's got several different ones. And I can't say that I've watched her religiously, but I have watched her quite a bit, and I've never heard her talk about, you know, having to oil her featherweights, but you do, or you're supposed to anyway. Okay, so after you sew the narrow end of your 2 pieces of fabric together, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a finger press, just to make sure. I don't want the lining to show at the top edge of my outer fabric. So I'm going to finger press that, and then I'm going to press it with the iron, and then I'm going to do a top stitch. Now you wouldn't have to do a top stitch, but I'm going to, just to make sure that that fabric doesn't shift, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the lace zipper on. And we'll have to make a decision. I had several colors to choose from, and I'm going to decide which one I think looks the best. So I'm just going to finger press that, and then I'll take it to the iron and see, if I wasn't careful there, that lining would want to scooch up and show, and I don't want it to. Although with the lace zipper, that lace zipper, it makes things very, very forgiving. Tell you, once you make a project bag like this, I don't think you'll go back the other way. The only caveat is this. The caveat is that I wouldn't make a vinyl project bag this way, because you do have to turn it inside out, and I think that vinyl would wrinkle. I haven't tried it, but I have made vinyl bags before, and I think you have to be kind of persnickety about that vinyl.
So you just get a nice sharp edge there.
Just give it a nice sharp edge with my finger, but did you see how that's trying to, that is, so you just have to really work at getting that lining behind your outer fabric. I'm just going to clip my seam here, and I hate to do it, but we're going to have to get up, and I'm going to have to iron this real quick. My portable iron is hot enough, and I'm just going to do a quick little iron just to press here, not stretching the fabric, making sure I'm not stretching, and also making sure that my sides are still lined up evenly. That is, I will say, that is one thing about if you decide to quilt, put batting in there and quilt it, you don't have to worry about your sides shifting, because, you know, material moves. But if it's quilted together, it can't move as much.
It's guaranteed to move if I'm going to sew it.
Now, I like this little portable iron. I really do, and I keep it by my sewing machine. But here's kind of a catch-22 to having everything right at your fingertips by your ironing machine, because before you know it, you've been sitting there for many hours and you really haven't moved very much. And I think it's good for us to move. I think we all need to. I know that I sleep better when I've done either some walking or at least moved a little bit throughout the day. Because if you're not careful, you've got a day of just sitting, and not sure that's good for anybody. Now,
I will say you're kind of funny about your irons, because I had one little incident with one of yours years ago, and I think I'm still banished from your irons today.
well, Sam got me, we went to the Ohio Valley Antique Mall. Great antique mall, if you're into that. I mean, we're really into vintage, and we really like to go to antique malls. I'll say I really like to go to antique malls, and Sam kind of tolerates it, but you do look at tools and stuff, so you look at manly things too. But anyway, we found a vintage iron at the antique mall, and it didn't look like it had been used. Like, judging by the coil and stuff, it looked like it was still brand new. And so I plugged it in, and I was using it, and I went in the other room just for a little bit, and I thought, something smells hot. Like, why is that making that noise?
I've never heard that before.
I think it's because of that steam that I put water in it. Anyway, I had the vintage iron on a rest, and so it was like at an angle about like that. And I could definitely tell something was getting hot, and that's what it did to my wool mat. There is no
That doesn't look like it was sitting on a rest, because that's the tail from the cord.
I'm telling you, I promise you, it was sitting on a rest. It was sitting on a rest that my mother had. Now, it wasn't very high. It was probably about that high off the edge of the mat, but that's how hot it got.
Oh, so it's sitting flat on the rest.
No, yeah, it was sitting flat on the rest, and the
Gotcha.
rest was at an angle. And so
Well, what I did to your iron, when I smoked your iron, it didn't look anything like that. And
I tell you what, it stunk to high heaven. And so I immediately unplugged it, and I took the iron and I put it outside so it could cool down. And then I went through the basement going like, trying to get rid of the smell before you got home, because I didn't want you to think I was going to burn the house down. And I think you may have even said, be careful with that iron. You could easily burn the house down.
well, I remember that day, because when I walked in, I really hoped that wasn't dinner.
That's a terrible thing to say.
That was my first thought.
Well, it wasn't dinner. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is take this back to the ironing machine. Now, the sewing machine, and we're going to do just a little bit of a top stitch along the top there. You don't have to do that, but I just do it to make sure that nothing shifts.
Now look how crisp that is.
I know, see?
Wouldn't it be great if they had an ironing machine that sewed at the same time?
Won't you work on that?
I'm still trying to do away with the bobbin.
Oh, I know. You get aggravated with the whole bobbin situation.
I surely cannot be the only person out there who gets frustrated because you got 500 yards of thread on top and 30 yards of thread in the bottom.
I know. I mean, I don't get it. You'd think with all the things that new sewing machines can do, you would think they could adapt that. Honestly, you do. I mean, my sewing machine, Big Mama, she could almost drive me home from the store. But she has a little bobbin just like everything else. And
About that, that's funny.
I know. She's been at the spa. I just got her back a couple days ago, and she's all cleaned. Just like if a person goes to a spa, they get all renewed and stuff. And Big Mama is a Baby Lock Solaris. It was kind of a treat to myself when I retired. And oh my goodness, I've never driven a sports car like a Porsche or anything like that, and probably never will, and that's okay. But she is, I mean, she purrs like a kitten when she sews. She's pretty wonderful, and she has all the bells and whistles, and she's way smarter than I am.
You know, if I wasn't so sure of myself, I'd be a little concerned right now.
You have nothing to worry about. Okay, so we're going to do just a quick little top stitch. And then we have to make a decision on what color of zipper we want to use.
I saw a lime green that looked pretty interesting.
No, we're not going to use a lime green. I will say in the Amazon selection, there really wasn't a lot of green. But, I mean, I don't remember how much that was because I bought it several years ago. But I thought the colors were pretty normal, not anything too wild. Okay, so I've got my top stitch on one side. I'm going to turn her around, do a top stitch on the other side. I would like to know how many viewers have a featherweight. I know it's there's a population out there that are featherweight diehards. I honestly cannot imagine trying to quilt on a featherweight. You can free motion quilt on one, but the throat space on this little girl is so small that I can't imagine trying to get a quilt in there. That would just be crazy. But I do make table runners because, you know, they're not real big. And so she works great for that. Sometimes in the winter, I will bring her upstairs and with a fireplace going, and we have a table that sits right by a window that has a bird feeder, and I get all warm and cozy doing my sewing, looking at the birds feeding and seeing the fireplace. And then in the summer, I heard it described, there was a girl in my sewing class that said she's not a good summer sewer because she'd rather be outside working in her flowers or that kind of thing. And I love to work in my flowers too, as long as there aren't any snakes around. And I will sometimes put her on the porch and I will sew on the porch. That way I'm outside and I still get to sew. It's like the best of both worlds. Okay, so here are my zipper choices. I can either use a light blue, I can use almost like a gray blue, I can use a beige, a brown, and a blue. And then my lining is, you know, that tan color. I don't think that blue is a good choice. I think it's too light, so that one's out. This one would be okay, but again, I think that's all you'd see is the zipper. I don't really think that it's a good accent choice. This one would be great, except that if I have all these colors that I need to use up, this is a common color, and there will be times when I'll be using fabric that only a beige will work for. So I'm going to save this one. And brown would be fine, and brown would look good on this, and it would also match my other. But I'm thinking that I will make a project bag that has like autumn colors in it for autumn stitches. So I think I'll save that brown. So guess what's left? Blue. And guess what color thread I have? Blue. So it totally works.
Am I the only one watching this that thinks that was already decided before this started?
Well, I just wanted to show that, you know, you got options. So here's what we're going to do. And this is the amazing part. This in the French seams is like, gosh, so great.
I will say, I saw you do the French seam last week, and that was pretty slick.
You were watching, and were you sneaking around? Oh, look, I got a little bird's nest there. Pretend you did not.
Sewing machine?
Pretend you did not see that. Okay, so the way it works is this. We're going to fold this top part over, and we're going to place the zipper on these two sewn edges. Super easy. And you can decide how much of this fabric you want to show. If you want it to be 2 inches, 2.5. I mean, if you wanted, you could go way down here. And if you have if you're using it for a makeup bag, you could totally do that. I think like a 2.5 inch strip at the top or a 2 inch strip at the top is pretty good. That way you've got plenty of room for your pattern to go in. You can get into and out of it easily. So I'm just going to do this. Just going to make sure that my edges line up. You got to make sure that this edge is good and this edge is good. And then see how my zipper is longer than the sides of my fabric, and that's perfect. That's exactly what you want to happen. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to flip it over that way, and I'm going to sew the bottom of the zipper with the left side being the part that you pull from. I'm right-handed. If I were making this for my sister who's left-handed, I would probably flip that zipper over because she wants to pull from the right side and open things that way. But since I'm right-handed and most of the general population is right-handed, I forget what the statistics are between right-handed and left-handed people, but there's way more righties than there are lefties.
It's either 18 or 12% of the population is left-handed.
Okay, so I'm going to lay it like that. And if I had my tape measure handy, I would just make sure that my distance is equal between both sides. But since I don't have my tape measure handy, and that's another thing about this Sew Steady table, is that it has a tape measure on it. Don't look at the fingerprints or anything because I didn't clean it. But anyway, I am going to use my handy dandy clips, and I'm going to clip the top of this to the zipper, making sure that I have room for the teeth to open. And what I try to do is when I get ready to sew it, I try to make my stitching go in those top two pieces of the flower. Now, I have seen at quilt shops, of course, they have lace zippers for sale. They're a lot softer and a little bit prettier. So if you wanted to buy one that was a little more expensive, but maybe I don't want to say better quality, but just a different quality, they are a little bit better probably.
Now, are these clips a sewing clip or?
These clips, again, I bought on Amazon. There is something called Wonder Clips, and if you're a beginner sewer, you probably have heard about them. But gosh, can I get in trouble for saying they're cheaper on Amazon? You can have coupons like Joanne coupons, and you can get them, 50, 40% off, something like that. But boy, I tell you what, they are invaluable. I use them all the time. Don't know who first thought of it, but they were pretty darn smart. Okay, so I got my zipper attached. And the great thing about this featherweight is you don't even have to have a zipper foot, because I don't know if you can show how skinny that is right there. I mean, look how close I can get to the teeth of the zipper. So I don't even have to have a zipper foot, although they do make a zipper foot for a featherweight, but I don't need it. Okay. So I sew a little bit, making sure that I've got my thread out of the way and that I can see fabric through those top two holes. Yep, it's starting to shift a little bit. I'm going to raise her up. There we go. And as you do more and more of these, and I kind of should have maybe started a timer to see how long it takes to make one of these project bags. You can whip these babies out, gosh, in less than an hour. That's probably cutting the fabric and everything. Now, if you decide that you want to quilt it, it's going to take longer. But if you just do a fusible interfacing, it's less than an hour for a project bag. Or makeup bag, or toy bag. Possibilities are endless.
I could probably put some tools in here.
You probably could.
I noticed you aren't backstitching when you start and stop. Is that because you're going down the sides?
Yeah, it's because I'm going to, by the time we're done, it's going to have 2 seams down the side. So it really doesn't need to have a back stitch. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. And I don't know, there's probably viewers that would say, you can totally backstitch with your Featherweight, but I treat her really super good, so I try not to upset her. Just like I try not to upset you, honey.
Well, I was just thinking you learned from me. Try not to upset you.
Okay, now I'm going to unzip it all the way to the end, and I'm going to fold this down. And this is really the only fiddly part about the whole thing. I feel like I sound kind of English when I use the word fiddly.
Makes me think of Fig Newtons. I'm kind of hungry right now.
I didn't even know you liked Fig Newtons. My grandma always used to have Fig Newtons at her house. I think my grandpa liked them. Okay, so get my clips again, and I'm going to clip the other side, the other sewn edge, to the top part of the zipper. Our grandson Max, he watched so much Peppa Pig, which of course is a English cartoon, that instead of saying tomato, he said tomato, until his mom finally said, Max, it's tomato. Oh, I've seen it. Peppa says it's tomato, which I thought was really, really cute. Okay, just about ready to sew the last little bit. Now you got to make sure this is the fiddly part.
So for the viewers that are seeing these clips for the first time, can we put a link in the description for them?
We can. We certainly can. They're Wonder Clips if you want to pay more, or you can buy generic, and honestly, they're just as good. I hope I mean, can manufacturers get mad at me for saying something that's cheaper than what they sell? So you can see I'm kind of just making sure that I've got this positioned. I've got my material underneath the 2 holes there.
And make sure the other part of the bag is not underneath.
And make sure the other part of the bag is not underneath.
And as a cameraman, make sure your arms aren't on the table when the sewing machine starts moving.
And pulling that back to make sure I don't accidentally sew it. You know, when you do something and you truly believe that it's the best way to do it, it's kind of exciting to think that there may be people out there that have never seen a project bag made this way. Kind of makes me feel good. It is a different ball game if you're using directional fabric, and if this video does well and people like it, then I will do a video on using directional fabric. And if nobody likes it, then I probably won't. Okay, so here we are, zipper, just like that. I mean, how easy is that for a zipper? That's got to be the easiest zipper. I mean, it's got to be the easiest zipper ever. I think zippers are kind of intimidating, especially for a beginning sewer. So we're going to make sure that our zipper closes and opens, and guess what? It does. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take this to, now I could do a top stitch, but I don't need to. I think that looks good. Looks like it caught everywhere and it's not going to come undone. Yep, I think that looks really good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is make sure we've got this even, and we're going to make sure that the sides are even. And that looks pretty good. I'm so proud of myself.
It does look good.
Yeah, it does. It looks really good. Wait a minute. Why is that opening from the other side? Oh, I know why. Because it needs to be like this. Whew, scared myself for a minute. how easy that was to fix. So all you got to do is turn it around.
It's
Gosh, I
already
never thought
hot
of
in
that.
here, but the temperature went up 5 degrees at that split-second moment.
You know what? So that, I just discovered that. So if you were making this for a left-handed person, all you got to do is turn it around
And roll it down.
and roll it down.
Well, there you go.
Shazam! I never realized that.
It's ambidextrous to this point.
It really is. How about that? That's so cool. Okay, so there we go. I am going to take this over to the ironing board and I'm going to iron it. And then we're going to do a French seam. And then you know what? It's done.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is turn the heater down some more because I'm smoking hot.
If you want to measure, which is probably always a good idea, you can take your quilting ruler and you can just measure. This is going to be 2 inches from the top here to the top of the zipper is what I'm going for. So that looks pretty good. Then I'll take it over here. And I think that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to do a little seam along here. Now, if you want to, you can also, I mean, I wouldn't leave this iron on that zipper for 5 minutes or anything, but you can, if it gets shifted a little bit as far as curling up, you can put your iron on that. And I'm gonna make sure that my sides are even. That looks good. Man, I'm so glad it looks good.
Is it set up for right hand now?
It is. It's set up for righties. I really do love this fabric. It's so darn cute.
It's kind of funny though, because up against your top, it's really busy.
Oh yeah, it is. But doesn't it look good when it's like that?
Oh, it does.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to take it back to the sewing machine, and it may seem very counterintuitive, but I almost said counterproductive. It seems very counterintuitive, but we are going to sew the wrong sides together on both sides.
So just like it sits right now, you're going to sew it together.
Yep, just like it sits right now, going to sew it together, and that is going to create our French seam. Okay. Okay, I'm like you. I'm getting kind of warm in here. And it was, you know, when we came back from Michigan, it was spring. It was 70 degrees. That Sunday when we came back, it was 70 degrees. And it was 70s all that week. Like my daughter called it a false spring. She said, I'm not a fan of false spring. And I'd have to say I am too. And then today, the wind chill was, I don't know, low 30s probably. Now, my stitch length, that is one thing about a featherweight. I've got it about as low as I can get it. So I've made the stitch length as long as I can get it, which is on a new machine. You know, you just press a button and you can set the stitch length for what you want it to be. So there are some trade-offs. The other trade-off is with a featherweight, you don't know when your bobbin is running out until you're sewing along and you're no longer sewing, where you don't get a, you know, like with Big Mama, it'll tell me bobbin is about to run out. So you don't know that with these older machines like that. They are bare bones, but that's okay.
So you don't count the number of stitches to know where you're at?
No, I do kind of think to myself, okay, how long have I been sewing on this? And it'll tell, in my head, I'll be thinking I'm probably getting close, and then I'll pay a little bit better attention. But so many times I've been sewing along and I realize, oh, crud. Now, I'm going to go very slowly over the zipper. Boy, she took that really well.
Yeah.
But if you've got batting in here, she didn't grumble, but I mean, she definitely was like not the happiest camper in the world.
Back to the whole bobbin thing, I did research that, and there was one company out of Europe that made a machine that did not use a bobbin. And I've looked at it numerous times. There's no reason that it can't be done. It's just, It hasn't been done.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy person, but I just wonder if they just don't want to make that change. I don't know.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
I know. But maybe somebody somewhere is happier because of it. I don't know. I'm going to go over this one more time because we are going to be turning it inside out, and I don't want anything to break. I'm trying to get as close to the first seam as I possibly can. Okay. Another thing about a featherweight is if you want to pull the thread, you have to have that take-up lever in a certain spot, or else it doesn't like it. But for chain piecing, like for quilting, gosh, she's great. And like I said, she's so portable. She's awesome. Now, because my throat space is not very big, I'm just going to turn it around so that...
Now, do you want to pull your zipper out a little bit before you...
Yeah. Oh, good point. Thank you. I would have eventually thought of that. But what you need to do, and it's very important, you don't want to sew this shut with the zipper pull on the outside, because guess what? Then you can't unzip your zipper. So I'm going to pull that in, and another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pin that so that they stay together. Actually, I'm going to make that a little bit closer. And I've tried doing a wonder clip or a clip, and I really kind of think this is one of those occasions where a pin does the best. It just kind of holds it better. I may have to move that when I get closer, but we'll see. Looks like somebody didn't cut her lining exactly the same width that she did her outer fabric. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move that guy. Man, she went over that like nothing, like butter. Got one more. Bring my take-up lever up and then down a little bit. And then just to make sure. It is funny when you go, it's kind of like when you drive one car, you're used to driving one car and then you get into another car and you got to remember, oh, this may not be in the exact same place. Uh-oh, come on. Come on, don't fail me now. Oh.
That's a good time for a commercial break.
There we go. Now we're good.
Yay.
Okay. I think we're back in business. Yeah. She is a little bit persnickety about that take-up lever. Not horrible, but a little bit. Gonna go across my zipper. Yay! Okay.
I've noticed in life that most things that are vintage there's usually a little...
You gotta treat them nice.
Yeah, there's a trick to get them to do what you want them to do.
Are you talking about wives or are you talking about sewing machines?
I was just merely looking at your sewing machine.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take it over to the cutting area, and I'm going to cut off the extra zipper on the side. And what's great is, you know, we're not even close to that metal, so that'll be easy to cut. Not even close to this metal, so that'll be easy to cut. And then if there's a little bit of bulk, a little extra, I'm probably going to shave that off also, just to prevent bulk on the sides. And we're almost done. This is one of my finds. It was in a sewing bag, a Ziploc bag at one of the antique shops in I think it was West Branch, Michigan. There was a big Ziploc bag in a box on the floor of this antique shop. Now, let me give you a little tip. that's where you're going to find your bargains, because obviously whoever had that booth didn't think that it was worthy of shelf space, so they just put it on the floor. And I got a ton of really cool sewing things in that Ziploc bag for maybe 12 bucks, that if you were going to piece them out and buy them just retail price, it was probably 40, maybe even $50 worth of stuff. That's what keeps you going back for more. It's the thrill of the hunt. And then when you find a bargain like that, it just fuels you to, you know, spend more time. I like vintage stuff, and I like going to places that has vintage. Now, they're not the sharpest scissors I own, but there is the farmer's market in Columbus, which is a neighboring town, in the summer. They had a guy who sharpened scissors, so I'm going to take them to him. And I might see if you can maybe see how they're a little bit wobbly. Mm-hmm. They just need to be cleaned. But for something like this, it's perfect. Now, this rotary cutter has an old blade in it. I would not do this if it did not have an old blade, because this will not make your blade happy going over the zipper like that. So we're just going to, I'm going to move that back a little bit so it's not in the way. And I'm going to line this up so that I make sure, and I'm lining it up with this line up here, and I'm going to line it up with this side line so that I know I'm cutting evenly. I'm lining it up with two of the lines, and that ensures I'm cutting evenly. I don't want to get in front of you, but I'm just going to trim a teeny tiny bit off, maybe like a 1/16 of an inch. Just to reduce the bulk. And I'm going to go over that zipper. Oop, moved a little bit. Normally, and I don't know why I didn't do it that time, I guess because I was on camera. It's amazing how much you forget once that camera starts. I always think, oh darn, I forgot to say this and I forgot to say that. That's why professionals use cue cards. So again, I'm lining up the top line here, and I'm lining up the side line here to make sure that I've got it straight. And then I use a weight because that helps to keep the ruler from shifting. And it really does keep the ruler from shifting. I'm moving it to that line there and that line there. And then I'm going to start down here at the bottom. Make sure I'm not cutting my thread. Oops. Yep, that looks good. And I really press down when I go over that zipper. And it just kind of sharpens things up a little bit. Move my weight. Okay, now, here's the really cool part. What was that?
I just figured out why it's so hot right here with the stove. The vent for the range hood was shut.
Oh.
So all the heat from that propane light was collecting right here, and
Okay.
it feels like a sauna.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to turn this inside out. And I've got a little turner over there by the machine that I can use to make sure that my points are sharply turned. Turn this like this. Then I'm going to sew the edge along here. Then I'm going to turn it right sides out, and then I've got a project bag.
With a French seam.
With a French seam, which sounds so fancy. Lace zipper and French seam, don't those sound fancy dancy? I'm not sure where that thread came from, but we'll worry about that later.
I almost feel like it ought to be on a Victoria's Secret shirt.
Oh, We probably shouldn't talk about that. Okay, let me get my turner and then I'll sew that up and then we're done. Again, I kind of wish we'd set the timer. Because I'm not kidding. I think once you get this process down, you could easily make one of these bags in half an hour. Well, maybe not easily, but once you know what you're doing, it goes fast.
That sounds like a perfect gift idea to me.
So, we're going to sew along here. And one of the reasons why we cut that fusible interfacing smaller, I'm just going to hold these together with my fingers, is to cut down on the bulk. And I know I've said that before, but I just want to reiterate how important that is. Okay. See, she kind of slowed down a little bit there.
That was probably 4 layers in a zipper.
Yeah. She deserves to slow down, doesn't she? If you wanted to, you could have changed your thread to match your lining. And I probably should have, but I didn't.
It's going to be on the inside, and who's
I
going to open
know.
up to see it?
Who's even going to notice? I don't think anybody. I mean, I wouldn't.
Well, now everybody's going to because you made mention of it. Oh, sorry.
All right, one more time. Yeah, she doesn't like that very much. Come on, baby. Now I said, of course, this is very beginner friendly, but if you wanted to make it a little bit fancier, you could use quilt blocks, you could use embellishments, you could use a cross stitch pattern in the front of it. So many possibilities, which, I mean, I don't want to do an Etsy shop, but I think if I were going to, it would be on project bags because there's so many things you can use. Vintage linens, which I love vintage linens. I'm trying to cut out some of that stuff. Some of that blue thread that doesn't belong. Oh, I bet that's from the zipper maybe. I probably should have ironed this before I sewed it, but you could. I'll just put it like that.
I couldn't because I can't use your iron.
You're banned. You know, I don't mind ironing at all. Even clothes, I don't mind. I find it kind of satisfying. Isn't that weird? I find it satisfying because you can tell where you've been. It's like pulling weeds. When you get done pulling weeds in a flower bed, it's satisfying because you can see where you've been. It's made a difference. And that is one thing about your job. You can tell, you know, when you make something or you build something, you can tell what you've done that day. Whereas in my job, sometimes you couldn't tell.
It seems like about all I get done anymore is I make a mess wherever I go.
You know, that brings me, I mean, that's so true. I feel like, and I know you think this too. Come on. Uh-oh. Come on. I know you think I piddle.
Oh gosh, no.
And I do piddle some.
Some.
But I'm not really sure where my day goes sometimes, you know?
We had the discussion the other day on your schedule for the day. Oh my gosh. It's a good life.
It is a good life. And now my friend introduced me to pickleball. And so that's 2 mornings a week. And, you know, so that's till noon. Boy, I really got off there. Don't look at that part.
Can we edit that out?
Yeah, please do. Okay, so guess what?
Ready for the reveal?
We are ready for the big reveal. We're going to turn it right sides out. and we have ourselves a project bag. Such a great way to use up extra fabric that you have, or if you see some fabric and you absolutely love it, this takes, gosh, for this bag, a half a yard, less than that, way less than that. What's 14 by 24? Let's see, a fat quarter is what, 18 by, I should know this, and normally I do, except I'm on camera. I think it's 18 by 22. So it would take longer, it'd take more than a fat quarter, but a half a yard of fabric of 2 different colors, and you've got a project bag, and with extra left over, enough for a matching needle book.
Because you're going to have one, you got to have the other.
I know, if you're going to have one. So here she is. Isn't that darling? It's so cute and so simple to make. If you're a beginner and you want to make a project bag, this is a pattern for you. Now, I do have a little bit of bulk there. I'm going to try and push that out and not poke a hole through the fabric. Kind of felt like armor, so I don't think I was really ever going to poke a hole through it. But it's great size. Easily fit. I don't have a big pattern in here. But again, doesn't have to be a project bag. It's a great gift as a makeup bag for a friend. So we would iron that, and there it is on the outside. And there it is on the inside with no exposed seams, and you got a pretty lining on the inside.
And that part there is pretty slick.
It's very slick. Those French, I think they may know what they're doing. So let's go on to making the needle book, and I'll show you what to do for that.
Can I get a beverage first?
Yes, you may. Let's get started on the needle book. Here is a look at all of the supplies that you will need in order to make the needle book. You'll need 2 pieces of outer fabric cut at 7 by 5. You'll need 2 pieces of fusible interfacing that are cut at 6.5 by 4.5 that will go on the wrong side of your outer fabric. You need 2 pieces of wool 6 by 4. You'll need a piece for an accent part of your pocket 7 by 5. You'll need the outside pocket cut to 7 by 4. You need a handle that is cut 2.5 by 1 1/4. And you need a piece, only one piece of batting for the pocket that's cut at 7 by 3.5. You don't have to have some school glue, but it's kind of nice to hold your ribbon in place. And you need some fray check in order to keep your ribbon from fraying. And you need a piece of ribbon that will be used to tie your fabric, or I'm sorry, to tie your needle book, which is what this is right here. And that needs to be cut at approximately 12 inches.
Now, if someone didn't want to use the ribbon, could they use something else?
They can. This is the easiest thing to do, but there are all kinds of different ways that you can close your needle book. You can use a button and a hair tie. You can use a snap. You can use
Velcro.
Velcro. If you have Velcro, you can use Velcro. But honestly, I think this is the easiest way to do it. There are so many tutorials on needle books. So definitely that is something that you can make as elaborate as you feel like putting the time in to make it. This to me was the simplest needle book. So this is why I decided to go with this one, since this was a beginning tutorial for a project bag. I got my ideas, a lot of my ideas from a YouTube called Learn, Create, Sew, and they do a very nice job. And then I also adapted a little bit of it, and then I also took what I'm using as the pocket from Amaruni Designs, which is also a YouTube. I have my 2 pieces of outer fabric. The right side is going to be down, or the pretty side facing down. I have my fusible. Bumpy side is going to be on the wrong side of the fabric, and I just center it. And the reason why I cut it smaller, just like I did with the project bag, is it helps to reduce the bulk. Again, bumpy side on the wrong side of my fabric. And use the directions on your fusible in order to adhere it. Some use steam, some do not. This one, again, is a Featherweight Fusible Pellon product that I bought at Joann's. I think they also have it at Walmart. I usually tend to start in the middle and work my way to the sides and to the end to help reduce the chance of wrinkles. Now we're going to take all of this stuff over to the sewing machine, that long trek over to the sewing machine, and I'll show you how we will assemble the needle book. I have attached or fused my fusible interfacing to my outside cover. So now I'm going to work on my pocket, and this is an adaptation. This is not how they did it in Learn, Create, Sew. This is something that I used the idea from Amaruni Designs. So I've got my two pieces of fabric right sides together, and again, this is going to be for the pocket. Come on, bobbin doesn't, she's kind of sticking a little bit. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to do a finger press, open my seams with just a finger press. I'm going to flip this over. Wait, that's wrong. I'm going to flip this over and put my two pieces raw edges aligned at the bottom. That gives me a little accent piece at the top of my pocket. And I'm going to go over and press that. And then we're going to put that on with a outer fabric like that. So what you see is this is going to be my pocket, and this is going to be the inside of the needle book. So I've ironed it just to make it a little more crisp, and I'm going to do a top stitch on it. If you had on your machine, if you had a decorative stitch that you wanted to do, this could be a place where you could use a decorative stitch. I'm just going to do a top stitch along the middle. Oops, that just fell off. Then we're going to take a piece of the outer fabric with the pretty side up, and we're going to put the pocket on top of it. Got a string here I'm going to take care of. Okay, now I'm going to put my pocket on top of the cover with the right side up and the right side of the pocket showing. And then that's going to hold my scissors and keep them from falling out. It's a deep pocket. Then I'm going to take, this is going to be what I use to clasp or to tie the needle book closed. And I'm going to put one end here, and making sure that I don't have it twisted, I'm going to put the other end, and also making sure that I have them evenly spaced. Otherwise, when you get ready to tie it shut, you may have one of them up higher than the other one. And it will still work, it just won't be as pretty. So I'm going to make sure that I have those in the same spot. And just to make sure it stay in place, I'm going to put just a squirt of Elmer's glue. Not much, just a dot. Can you see that okay? Mm-hmm. Just a little bit of Elmer's glue in place. Good old Elmer's school glue. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. The reason why I like this bottle is that long needle nose. Put that down just a little bit maybe. Well, doesn't want to stay. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, and this is an adaptation that I came up with, is when we were in Michigan and I had taken a project to work on in the evenings and I would sew on the evenings, I didn't have a needle book or any place to keep my scissors, or, I mean, I had my great big project bag, but it was kind of unhandy. So I came up with the idea of putting a little holder for my ring. Oh, here it is. That would hold my floss. You could either use your floss drops or you could use your floss away bags, either one. And to make this ring, I'll show you how you do it, but it's going to end up being inside of our project bag. Or, I'm sorry, it'll be on the outside, but I'll sew it on the inside, place it like that. So here's my piece of fabric that's 2.5 by 1 1/4. And we're going to fold it so that the inside, or the pretty side, is together. And all we have to do is sew one line through there. Now this is a time when you can backstitch. Just because we're going to turn this inside out, and it makes it a little bit easier to do that without tearing the thread. Cut my threads. I'm going to take my stitch back to the way it was. I had a safety pin. Any idea where it went? Oh boy. Ah, there it is on the floor by your foot. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to stick my safety pin on the end of my fabric. Close it up. There we go. And turn my safety pin so that it goes inside. And then I just use it to push my fabric through. You get your fabric pretty wrinkled, but it does the trick of turning your fabric right side out.
Lucky there.
Yeah. Old-fashioned as can be. I'm going to put this back on my floss ring so I don't lose it. And if I didn't have one already made, we'd have to get up and we'd have to go iron it. But since I have one made, I just wanted to show how you do that. And when we get ready to sew that, we're going to sew it so that it's placed going inside. Just like this ribbon is inside our needle book, that's the way we're going to do this. Get rid of that paper. I think I'll do just a little spot of glue. Just kind of hold everything in place. Hold that together. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our other piece. Well, I take that back. We're going to put in our batting. So to give our pocket a little more substance, we're going to put a piece of batting in between. And you can make this pocket as deep as you want it to be. If you don't want it this deep, you can cut your fabric 1/2 inch or 1 inch shorter, whatever you prefer. Yep, my school glue did not hold. That's okay, I think it'll be okay. Put it like that. Then we take our other piece of outer fabric and we stick it on top. Now that's several pieces of fabric. We want to make sure that we're not going to sew into our rickrack or our ribbon, whatever ties it, holds it together. And we're going to sew all the way around, but we're going to leave an opening down here at the bottom so that we can turn it right sides out. So put all the raw edges together. Make sure that batting's good. My needle is down. I'm going to lift up my presser foot. I'm going to turn my fabric 1/4 of the way. Put my needle down. Oh, back that up. Put it down. Lift my presser foot, turn my fabric. Make sure everything looks good. Needle down, presser foot up, presser foot down. Now a little trick that I learned from watching Sherry McConnell is she would give a little extra stitch on the inside, just like that, and that, whoops, forgot to put my press foot down. That helps to prevent your stitches from ripping out whenever you turn it right sides out. So I'm going to cut this, leave my space to turn. And I've left about, I'd say 3 inches, which is very generous. Needle down. Kind of going from where we started. Okay. Now I'm going to cut some of this bulk, and I can just do that. I'll just do that with these scissors I've got right here. And then I'm going to cut my corners, being careful not to cut my seam. Again, I'm going to cut this corner to try and cut down on the bulk. And I'm going to do that at each corner, especially where that batting is. Okay. Finding my place, I'm going to turn it. I'm going to start from the far corner and turn it right side out. Same thing with the other corner. Turn it right side out. Now, as you can see, that looks like that's not going to be right, but what you have to do is continue to turn it. It's going to go like that. I'm going to pull my corner out. And we're still not done. We still have to put our wool pieces in the inside. And we have to close that up. I'm going to get my corner turner. Poke out my corners, being careful not to poke so much that I poke a hole in it. And you're going to do all 4 corners. You can see that's pretty bulky in there. That looks better. Oops. Oh, shoot. I did kind of poke through on that one. I got a little overzealous. So I'm going to turn it again, and I'm going to sew that, just reinforce that one little spot. And that happens. I mean, I think it's probably happened to everyone. Do that one more time just to make sure. Turn that guy again. I'm going to be a little more careful. There we go. That's better. Okay, so there it is with our pocket. It's got a little little trim to the inside of the pocket. Next thing we're going to do is take it to the iron, and we're going to iron that and then close up. I'm going to do it with the machine, but you could do it with a blind stitch, or you can do it with a ladder stitch. I'm going to do it with the machine. Folding those edges in and then sewing that shut. So I'll be right back. We are almost done. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to cut this in the center, and I'm going to add just a little fray check to it. Which, if you've never seen fray check before, it keeps things from fraying, just kind of like what it says. You don't need a lot. I just put a little bit on my finger. And then I'll do the other one. I think I got thread in under my fingernail. I missed not getting my fingernails painted. I had a spot taken off my finger, and it was benign, but I saw in the news where those UV lights may not be good for your skin when your nails are drying. And so I decided, I'm not going to take the chance. So now, to keep these out of the way, I'm going to kind of just put them off to the side like that, and then I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around. And when I do that top stitch, it will seal up that bottom where I turned my fabric. So cut that raveling.
Do you tuck that in, or did you do that when you ironed it?
I did it when I ironed it. I tucked that in. So you'll never see it because of the top stitch. It is kind of thick. It is going to be thick and I'm going to use this little skinny part of my foot as my guide. I'd say it's almost a 1/16 of an inch. I think it's less than an eighth, definitely less than a fourth. I'm going to go to the end, needle down, press her foot up. And I'm going to go all the way around. One more. Oh, I forgot to put my needle down. So many things to remember. You can see this thread pretty easily. Let me cut that back. Come on. Oh, come on, honey. Oh, boy. We're almost done. Don't fail me now. There we go.
Didn't stitch?
It didn't? Yeah. Oh. Wait a minute. Nope. I wonder if I'm out of bobbin thread.
I think you are.
Doesn't that figure?
And again, I say, why are the bobbins so small?
I don't know, but I bet you I am. So, well, yeah, I'm out of bobbin thread.
So we'll take a commercial break while
So-
Cindy rewinds her bobbin.
Yeah. Anyway, there she is. That's the inside of it. And then we're going to add our felt in just a little bit after I take care of my bobbin. Then we will iron this, and then we'll add the felt to the middle of our book. And that's where you can put your needles. And then you can tie it right here. And you can add your floss ring. How about that?
There you go.
Okay, let me wind my bobbin. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And we decided we don't think the foot was a little bit uneven. We don't think she liked that very much. So we're going to go at it from the direction where she had a level foot. Okay, we're just about ready to sew on our wool pieces. I think half of the job is cutting off the extra pieces of thread. Okay, now the big question is, should we, this is going to be really thick, and because I'm using an older machine like this, I may decide to just do one piece of wool because I'm afraid of the thickness with the batting in the pocket, and we'll see how she does with just one piece. And then we'll go from there.
You know, I have a new walking foot machine that would go right through that.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't be making it on a featherweight. And I'm going to pin this in place so that it doesn't shift. When I made that other one, it kind of shifted a little bit. So let's do this. And I'm just going to sew where I've got that crease, where I folded it in half. I folded the wool in half to find the center. And then I have it placed evenly on the sides of my book. I kept my thread color the same. And I think I might just do that one more time. Going back the other way. And there she is. It actually did pretty well with that, but I think I'll leave it just like that. And you can put your pins in here. You can put your extra needles in here. You can put your scissors in. By the pocket being so deep like that, I mean, I don't think those scissors are going to go anywhere. I don't think they're going to fall out. And let's see if it works with thread sticking to it. I imagine it will. When you're done with a piece of embroidery floss, you can put it in there and then you can tidy up after you get home. But it keeps you from having thread everywhere. So that is your matching needle book to go along with your project bag. I had rickrack, and so that's why I chose to use rickrack. You wouldn't, I mean, you could use ribbon. There's all kinds of things that you can use. And let's put on our floss, and you got everything right there. How snazzy is that?
That's pretty slick.
Okay, so that is the tutorial on the project bag, makeup bag, gift bag, and a matching needle book. If you have a stitching friend, I guarantee they're going to love that as a present. Or if you want to make some for yourself to practice and then make one for a friend, you can do that too. Hope you enjoyed it. Now we still have some other things to go over, so I think we'll quickly go over whips and finishes, and then I've got some news. We're going to go straight to the whip, which I know some people have like 15 whips, but my whip is almost done. And love is patient, love is kind. I only have to finish my bunny right there, and it will be done. Wasn't done in time for Valentine's Day. I'm going to try and find a frame for it. I don't know if I'll paint it red or paint it black. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm real happy with the way that turned out. So this is done. And this was a pattern by Artful Offerings. And it's Love is Patient, Love is Kind. I have 2 FFOs. These I did last year. I stitched them last year, but I did not finish them. And they are Scattered Seed Samplers, Spring Gathering, and they're sisters, I guess you'd say. They're a sister stitch. And I got those done and love the way that they turned out. You know, at first I thought I wished I'd stitched them both on the same fabric, and it's 25 count Lugana. And I think the other one was on 25 count Lugana as well. But I'm real happy with the way that they turned out. So that was really fun. And I am going to have, next week, I'm going to have foot surgery. And I'm going to have tons of time to stitch, and I'm going to be watching a ton of NCAA basketball. So it's probably a good time to be off my feet. And I am going to work on several things. I'm going to do some, even though it'll be a little bit after, well, I guess actually, yeah, it'll be a little bit after St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to do a Pineberry Lane little shamrocks and shamrock bunnies, because I want to have, I don't think I have any St. Patty's Day stitches. So that will be really cute. All of those will be really cute in a bowl. And I've got some beautiful wool that I got when we were in Michigan, and we may go over all that stuff at a different time, but So I'm going to do some wool applique. I'm excited to do that. And this bunny pattern as well. I'm sure you've all heard of birthday starts or anniversary starts. Well, I'm going to have a surgery start. And it's something that I've had for a long time. I downloaded this probably 2, maybe even 3 years ago. And it's a whopper. So I think I'm going to make this my surgery start. And the reason why I bought it to begin with is it has a bunny, has an anchor, has a sailboat, and has some quilt patterns in it as well. Love moose. I kind of think of that as Michigan, although we've never seen a moose in Michigan. But anyway, I think that's going to be my surgery start. So it may take me 5 years to get it done, but hey, that's okay. So I have plenty to keep me busy while I'm off my feet. And they say the recovery is not that bad, so I'm hoping that it won't be. And I say thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. We hope to have a guest stitcher soon. I do want to send out a couple shout outs. I met Carol of Too Tall Stitchers. They're fellow Hoosiers, and she was super nice. Met her at a sewing class, and I'm going to go to my first Hoosier Stitchers Club meeting on Saturday. So happy to do that. And then also wanted to send a shout out to, make sure I don't forget anyone. I already told you about Design and Be Merry. I think she does a lot of wool tutorials and knows a lot about wool. The Globetrotter Stitcher, I just really enjoy her videos, and so I wanted to say thank you to her for sending those out. And also wanted to say hello to Doreen of Prims and Privies. She's on a camping trip right now, and I think she's by herself, and I so admire her being able to go camping by herself, to pull a camper, to park it, all of that. That's one of my goals. I'm going to learn how to do that. So she just does so many things. She makes so many patterns. She's on Instagram, and she's a workhorse. So hope you're having fun, Doreen. And also wanted to say thank you to Rebecca J. She's the one who turned me on to the Globetrotting Stitcher. And with all of that and all the information I've given you, I hope you have a great couple weeks and happy stitching.